Oh, yeah. It's starting to look good.
Now at this point here, you want to try and let it simmer, you know, and to let some of the flavors that are in the dry ingredients leach out into the food. And while we're doing that, maybe you can tell me some more about your organization.
Well, actually, I have an agency, a social service agency
Mm-hmm.
called Comprehensive Case Management Solutions. And we are the advocacy arm of, and the service delivery arm of the mentoring program. We thought, how can we showcase the mentoring program? And what we came up with, why not have a talk show? And we can do a number of things. We can inform, we can research in terms of the ADA, and we can find out all the information that people are searching for and cannot find, and we can become the voice for people who typically don't have a voice. So we have the agency spawned the mentoring program, and the mentoring program spawned the talk show. Enplain.
Is this something that you do with yourself, or do you have like a small organization of people?
I have people who work for me.
And what is Enplain View?
Enplain View is the talk show.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And the talk show, by the way, I've got a panel of ladies that work with me, and if they would come in one at a time and introduce themselves while we're waiting for this to simmer. Abner?
Come around this way.
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing? What's your
I'm
name?
good. Abner?
Abner?
Yep.
Really?
Abner.
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 Oh, I thought you said Abner. Okay, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
ABENA. As you
Okay.
can see, it's right here.
Oh, okay. Very good.
There you go.
I didn't want to look down there without you telling me, but you
No,
missed
no,
it.
no, no. You're like.
Abner Amoa. Abner is another social worker.
Okay.
Abner and I met when I was working for the public defender's office. She was an intern there, and I fell in love with her and adopted her.
Okay.
So she's a part of this really bright effort of ours.
Okay, what can you tell us about some of the things that you've done and learned in the process of being within Enplain View?
Well, I definitely have learned a lot about our community. As a social worker, I've learned that there are different individuals within our community that do utilize our services and they oftentimes do need someone to speak on their behalf. Therefore, it makes sense that I can be part of something like this, especially individuals with developmental disorders. And that's what makes it, so when you top that with other clinical disorders or even substance abuse, you're dealing with a multitude of things going on in one individual's life versus, myself. I mean, we're all different in our own unique ways, and so they oftentimes just need an extra person to speak for them.
Okay.
With the talk show, one of the things that we are using, it's not scripted.
Yes.
As you can
Totally not scripted, and we target different topics within our community that are challenging, and oftentimes we just want to plant a seed in the community's mind so that they can think more about it. Because oftentimes you don't necessarily hear, about everything that's going on with politics, with community organizations, and all of that. So that's what we're pretty much all about. Anything else?
I'm cooking. You have to talk to the camera. I'm sorry.
Talisa, come on in. We can come in one at a time and introduce ourselves. We have the ladies with a view.
Hello.
Hi,
your name is?
Delisa.
Delisa, nice to meet you, Delisa.
Nice
I'm
to
Donald
meet
Lane.
you.
Same here. Can you tell us about Enplain View, your role in it?
Well, it's the same. We all have the same role, and we do a number of topics. We advocate, again, for people that have disabilities.
Talk to the camera, please.
And we are into, like she said, it's non-scripted, and we actually
Which means when we make mistakes, it's okay.
right. we advocate for each other.
Yes.
Right now it's women that are on the panel. That doesn't mean that'll always stay that way.
I hope not.
Right. Oh. No.
So I think somebody else over here has a view.
Right. But I pretty much ditto. Abner spoke very well about what it is we do and how we do it. And one of the things we were talking about earlier is people's fear. And when they're around someone that's different, then they tend to be uncomfortable. And sometimes it's a matter of us just saying things to ease that discomfort and let them know that they're people just like we are, that have the same kind of needs, the needs to have attention and to be inclusive in what society does, and not to be made to stand out to be so different. So that's pretty much.
Thank you, Delisa. Who's
Well,
next?
I hope you'll keep that in mind if I decide to join your organization, because I think there's like, what, 7 or 8 women?
Yeah.
And I'll be the only man, so
Oh, wow.
cut me some slack.
Keep this in mind. There are 6 strong women.
And more than likely, if I join this group, this is where I'll be most of the time.
Yeah, we'll relegate him to the kitchen because he can cook. Our next guest, not a guest, panelist.
Sneaking around.
How's it tasting tonight?
Very good.
Go, Donald. Go, Donald. Do you ever,
This isn't the Donald show, this is the Enplain View show.
Well, since Donald's in plain view,
I guess you are in plain view,
I told you
Donald.
we had some
So
strong
what's going on over
sisters.
here, Donald? Are you making it taste good?
I always make things taste good.
Okay, all right
If you want to
then.
make it taste good, you gotta stick your finger in there.
No, you put your foot in it, that's what my mother used to say. Put your
All right,
foot
we'll
in
do
it.
that a little
Put
bit
your foot
later.
in it.
We don't want people to
Yeah, I know
understand
exactly.
that
We don't want
people to know that they really put
Exactly,
their
that we
foot
put their foot in
in
it.
it. We got it
exactly.
seeming like it's a metaphor, but when black folks cook, they really put
Put
their
their
foot
foot in it, yeah.
No, we don't, because we don't want to start the program.
I don't believe it.
No, we're making the seafood gumbo, and in the process of doing it, like the title of the show is Home Cooking with a Purpose. A little bit of home cooking and a purpose. So tell us about your purpose.
My purpose in plain view is inclusion. For 13 years, I was a director of a foster care program in the county. And it was, Jackie actually was one of the first families. It started 25 years ago.
Yes.
And she opened up her home to an individual with disabilities. Back then, people wanted to put people in institutions, keep them locked away on a big hill where nobody saw them. But Jackie opened up her home to an individual who still lives with her.
Yes.
After all these years, not knowing anything about him. He didn't communicate verbally, but all this time, they've been together all this time. So that's my big purpose, inclusion, and letting people know that, as we said, you can't be afraid of people with disabilities, and that they have a purpose and they belong in every part of the community.
Right.
In a home, they deserve to have a home. They don't have to live in an institution. They don't have to live in a group home. They can live in a home like everybody else.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we want to promote a lot more and let people know, that open your home, have people over for dinner.
Right.
Don't be afraid if this person, prepares your food or,
Right.
Actually this weekend I went to a wedding for 2 individuals with disabilities. They got married. So they can do anything they want to
Hurrah.
do. And people need to
Hurrah.
accept that accept
It's almost like in a really, back in the day, there was, I can't remember that place, I think it was in England, a place called Bedlam. And they use that term Bedlam now to describe a lot of confusion.
Exactly.
But there's actually a mental institution called Bedlam, and they used to lock people
Wow.
away. Even at the turn of the century in New York City, there was a hospital called Bellevue who was known for
I
people with
remember
disabilities.
Bellevue.
If you call Bellevue and said, I got somebody with a disability, they would pay you to lock them up.
It used to be that way here.
Yeah.
If we thought they were a threat
Right.
to society or that would harm themselves, they would pay you
Right.
to turn them in and they would get locked away.
And most times it wasn't so much that they were a threat to society, they were just different than the rest of
And
society.
people didn't understand that.
I'm different than the rest of society, and I got people like to have me locked up, and we'll go about that. But it just goes to show you, if you give people more responsibility, they'll take more responsibility.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm getting kind of getting the vibe from here that that's what this is talking about. If you don't know them, you'll always be afraid of them.
Yes.
And if you get to know them, you'll come to love them just I'm quite sure the person you're with.
And one of the aspects of what we do is that we look at them in terms of their strengths and not their weaknesses.
Exactly.
We look at their potential and we build on that. Instead of saying, so-and-so has a wheelchair and he can't get about the community, we look at his other strengths.
Right.
He likes art, so let's get him
Into
out
art.
into the community and get him involved in art.
Right.
And that's a good way of promoting people's self-esteem and promoting their inherent value.
Right.
We feel that everybody has an inherent value.
I can remember before the movie Rain Man came out, people with disabilities were frowned on. But once you find out what they call them, idiot savants.
Right.
Right, savants, let's put it that way. And once you find out, I've done some work with Japanese television, interviewing some of these people, incredible artists,
Yes.
musicians, writers,
Highly
painters,
Mathematicians.
right,
Yes.
mathematicians, especially
Yes.
Like that
mathematicians.
movie, My
Yes.
Left Foot,
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
it's once you find out what they can really do that you really see their true value. But you'll never find out what they can really do until you invite them into your home or you get to know them.
And that's true of us.
Yeah.
Any typical person. You know, we can turn a person off and not really get a chance to appreciate who they really are for all their strengths and what they bring to the table. And that holds true on both ends of the spectrum.
Case in point, when I came to Jackie's house yesterday, when I walked in the door, she looked at me like,
Oh, no, you didn't.
Did
And then when we started talking and she found out I could cook, she was like, this is my brother right here, baby.
You in my family.
Yeah. You see? So she realized that when I came in the house, I wasn't a criminal.
Wait, first of all, tell the whole truth.
The whole truth.
When you came to Cincinnati, we had you picked up by a driver.
And they had the plane land in a cornfield. They did.
Don't believe him. We don't live in a cornfield.
No, you don't live in the cornfield. The plane landed in the cornfield. Right around the airport, there's nothing but cornfield.
Because he brought the cornfield with it.
See, from New York.
From New York.
From New York.
This is my first time in Cincinnati, and I found out that Cincinnati is, okay.
We're all right.
Well,
We do our things. We got Enplain View in Cincinnati, so that's what makes it hot.
It's
That's what makes it
It's a
hot.
very quiet
That's what
community.
makes it hot.
Cincinnati is a very quiet community, because I've been in certain parts of Cincinnati, and it always looks like it's a Sunday afternoon.
Oh, he needs to come to my house.
You see, now this is what we're talking about.
Are you ready for another step?
Yeah, you can give me,
What you
give
got?
me you got crayfish, right?
Crayfish tails.
Give me crayfish tails.
All of them?
We're gonna load this up here and make this hot.
That's crayfish?
Crayfish tails.
We got a couple of fake brothers behind the cameras. They look like they ate today, so we're gonna tighten them up
Oh,
before
poor
the
thing.
We're gonna make this for y'all.
We've got another Enplain View panelist.
Yes.
Yes.
You want some more?
No, we put this around for a while.
Sure, I'm gonna disappear while the seafood's going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Monica's not a seafood
No, I'm not a
person.
I
Oh, no,
seafood
you're
and I eat it, but not that. You can go with the seafood.
Who's our next panelist coming up?
Stranda.
Stranda. How you doing, Stranda?
Smelling good.
Hey, Donald. Hey,
Yes,
Jackie.
that's fine. You know, you interview, that's what I'm playing. How you doing, Stranda? My name's Donald. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Donald.
Okay. Say again. You look at me like that.
I gotta check the cook out, man.
Is
He's
this your first time
responsible
meeting
for the
Donald?
meal. This is actually not my first time meeting Donald. I met Donald many years ago, and he was just
Poor
a
thing.
nice guy, and the same what you see now is what I saw that many years ago. He's a nice guy.
Never change. Never change.
Nice guy.
So tell us about your role in Plainview and the whole organization thing that's going on.
My role is pretty much the same as everybody else's role. I worked with Monica and Jackie. I was there for about 6 years. And then once I left that organization, I continued to work with children and through Children's Protective Services. And so I came across a lot of situations where children were being abused and mistreated, not by society or an institution or the school, but by their parents. Oftentimes because they couldn't get the help that they needed. And so they didn't really know how to care for this child who had so many unusual behaviors or these disabilities that nobody could quite pinpoint why they had them or how to address them or what have you. And so I just became really intrigued by the lack of information or the lack of use of the information that is available. And I would like to see more of that, more interaction with parents who are working with children, not just those of us who take on the role of caring for other people's children, but for parents who are actually caring for their own children, and to teach them how to teach their kids.